All right, Cancer, thanks for tuning in to your July 2014 horoscope. My name is Athen. I'm going to do this a little bit differently this month. I'm going to divide it up into 4 parts. First, I'm going to talk about the self, yourself this month, your work, your relationships, and your spiritual involvement, your spirituality this month. So let's start this off. We'll talk about yourself. This includes your 1st, 5th, and 9th houses, the fire houses. Your 1st house is the self, 5th house is your self-expression, and your 9th house is your higher self or your higher guidance. So let's talk about yourself this month. Your ruler, the moon, is going to have a full moon this month on the 12th in your 6th house. So first half of the month, certainly about that self-improvement, improving yourself, getting a new regiment in place perhaps, a new diet, new exercise, or it could have to do with your work, improving your work, making it more oriented to what you're about. And remember, during this, it's about bringing more passion into what you do. All of this is about passion of life. It's not just self-improvement for the sake of it. It's about improving yourself to enjoy your life more, okay? And to also be a better spiritual vessel as well. So that's the first half. The second half, we have the new moon in your 1st house, okay? So the self-improvement, I think, is going to spawn a new you this month, and this will be, you'll notice this around the 26th, okay? So I think if you really take the time to do that improvement first half, I think you will notice a significant change in who you are. I think other people might notice it even more in that 1st house, because that 1st house does rule mostly the way people see you. In either case, the new you will certainly be coming into play around the 26th. And this is also about setting new goals and new intentions and new pursuits, new ambitions. Okay, so set those intentions around that new moon, and I think you'll really see them manifest, particularly in about 15 days thereafter, 14 days when the next full moon happens. All right, so let's talk about your self-expression this month. Mars rules that 5th house, and he's going to be in your 3rd. So sharing is key for you, particularly up until the 13th when Mars is in that 3rd. Share yourself, express yourself, teach, communicate. You have stuff to teach others, and you also have a lot to learn. So keeping that in mind. From the 13th onward, then matters will take a little bit more of a spiritual tone as Mars goes into your 4th house, which has to do with expressing your inner self, okay? So while in the first half you are expressing your outer self, your more, you might call masculine, proactive self, the second half is more about receptivity and connecting to that inner feminine, and through that communicating and expressing that side of yourself. Okay? And I think all of this will give you a tremendous sense of motivation, because we are talking about Mars here. Now let's talk about your higher guidance and your higher self. Jupiter rules your 9th, and he's going to be in your 1st house this month. Has been and will be for about a year. So start those that new connection. Perhaps some of you have started a new connection with your higher self, or your higher guidance, your guides, or perhaps started a new understanding of spirituality or wisdom or philosophy, something of that sort. Whatever it is, continue to expand it, and I think you'll find that very enjoyable this month indeed. And perhaps even writing them down and setting objectives and goals oriented around you expanding your higher self, your higher wisdom this month. All right, now let's talk about your work. So we're going to talk about your 2nd house, which rules your resources, your 6th house, which is your day-to-day work, and your 10th house, which is your long-term contribution to society. So let's start with your resources. This also includes finances and your values. the Sun rules that second house. The Sun will be in your 12th up until the 16th. So first half of the month, I think you'll notice the more that you let go, the more you're able to surrender that aspect, your resources, the easier things come, and perhaps more abundance comes to you by doing that. It's really about just letting go, letting the universe, letting Source run its course, play its role. And by letting go, I think you'll notice it flowing, the resource area flowing. Now on the 16th, the Sun will go into your first, so from that point and into next month in August, it will then be more proactive. Okay, so taking what you learned in regards to spiritual aspects of your resources and now putting it into action and becoming an active co-creator of your resources and setting your intentions, okay, and going after your values, okay, from the 16th onward. Now, let's talk about your day-to-day activities and your day-to-day work. Jupiter is in your first house. Jupiter rules that sixth house of yours, okay? So you've been expanding, I think, your day-to-day activities, perhaps your health and your work, okay? Reaching perhaps a larger audience, or perhaps just expanding your skills and your abilities in what you do, refining yourself, refining your art. And this will continue to be the case, and I think, again, this will open up a lot of opportunities for you in regards to your work, okay? Because the first house really is about opportunities in life, and with Jupiter we are talking about expanding those opportunities. But it's going to take refining that work, which is good. And starting, it's more about starting and taking one step at a time and just doing the best you can, and just by taking those steps, you'll find your work overall improving. Now let's talk about your service and contribution this month. Mars rules your 10th house. Mars will be in your 3rd up until the 13th, then going into your 4th. Okay, so for the first half, it's really about sharing what you have to offer. Let as many people know about what you have to offer, what you have to contribute. And perhaps just sharing and teaching what you know. Okay, and through that, through sharing and teaching, you will be being of a tremendous service to others. Okay? On the 13th onward, things will take a much more receptive tone when Mars goes into your 4th house. Okay? So at that point and into August, connecting to your inner self, your inner feelings, you will find the tremendous amount of contribution, and by tapping into that and sharing that, you will definitely have a lot to offer. So that's your work this month. Let's talk about your relationships. Mercury, first we're going to talk about communication, which is the 3rd house. Then we're going to talk about the 7th house, which is relationships. Then the 11th house, which has to do with groups. These are the air signs. So let's start with the 3rd house. Mercury rules your 3rd. Mercury will be in your 1st, Mercury will be in your 1st Mercury is in your 12th house, Mercury is in your 12th, going direct on the 1st, okay, for the majority of the month up until the 28th. So your communication is taking on a much more spiritual tone this month. And I think you've been reflecting on that back in June. Reflecting on communicating your spiritual essence and going with the flow with your communications as well, just surrendering the process. It's about being conscious, bringing conscious presence to what you say, okay? And in your relationships, this is going to help develop existing ones and develop new ones as well. So continue that. Continue just going with the flow with the communications and bringing that conscious awareness, and also embodying that universal love into what you say as well. Speak from your heart will be key for you this month. Now, on the 28th and into August, Mercury will then go into your 1st, so then we're talking about a much more proactive take on your communication. So really putting, putting it into action, taking, setting intentions with your communications and being more motivating and more of a co-creator in the sense that what you're actually doing and taking action towards your communication in your relationships. Okay, but that's just for the last few days of the month and into August. Now, let's talk about your relationships in general. We have Saturn, which rules your 7th house, going direct on the 20th in your 4th. So relationships have been taking on a very receptive flavor, I think you've noticed, for quite some time while Saturn has been in that 4th. And feeling your way through relationships really is key. And you've been reflecting on this, I hope, up until the 20th while Saturn's been retrograde. Continue to do this month. Reflect on how you feel about your relationships, how you can be more receptive and giving and sharing and also nurturing to yourself and others. And then as Saturn goes station direct and into August, starting to take that more Saturnian approach, that more structured, disciplined approach to molding your feelings, and it's almost like controlling your feelings in a way that you're conscious of your inner self, conscious of what you say, and then letting out those things which contribute the most to a much more refined, much more beneficial relationship. Okay. Now let's talk about your groups and the collective. Venus rules that 11th house of yours, and she will be in your 11th. Okay, so really uniting with groups, embracing groups, being a part of groups, particularly up until the 13th. Okay, hang out with friends, join a class, do something humanitarian. Even if it's not social, do something for the collective, online, share information, share through Facebook, all of this sort of stuff, not necessarily Facebook, but that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. Do that, and I think you'll find that very enjoyable, okay? And a lot of opportunities for you as well in regards to relationships. Now, on the 13th, Venus will go into your 12th, so the process of these groups will be much more about letting go and surrendering. A lot of that stuff you've been doing in regards to your resources will now be in regards to the whole collective group. Letting go, not being too concerned about, not micromanaging, not being too concerned about what's going on in the group, and just going with the flow and uniting with everyone in a way where you're not attached and you're just letting the universe play itself out, okay? And through that, again, I think you'll find a lot of opportunities through groups, okay? And also spiritualizing groups. I think 13th onward, perhaps, joining spiritual circles or becoming more acquainted with the spiritual aspects of relationships will certainly contribute to that as well. All right, now let's talk about spirituality. I'm going to break this up into 4 parts. Your 4th house, which has to do with your inner self and feelings. Your 8th house, which has to do with releasing attachments, and that's the transformation process. And then the 12th house, like we were talking about, which has to do with presence and that universal love. Okay, so let's start with that inner self. This is where spirituality comes from. It's about tapping into that inner self of yours, that spiritual self. Now, Venus rules that 4th house. Like I said, she's going to be in that 11th, okay? So it seems like this whole month actually does have a strong spiritual connotation surrounding groups, okay? And in this sense, it's about sharing your spiritual self with others, your inner self, okay? Your inner feelings. How do you feel? All right, what are you feeling? How do you feel about certain things? How do you feel about this and that? Sharing, the more you can share about your feelings will certainly not only strengthen your relationships, but strengthen your spiritual nature as well, and help you perhaps become more aware of and embrace all aspects of yourself. It's really about embracing your feelings this month. Then from the 13th onward, Venus will be going into that 12th, so very spiritual month, and particularly second half when Venus, the ruler of your 4th, goes into your 12th, letting go, surrendering. Take your time to meditate. I think you're going to find it very enjoyable because we are talking about Venus here. Enjoy meditating. Do whatever it is. It doesn't have to be spiritual in the sense that it's like specifically yoga or meditation. Whatever helps you connect to your feelings in this sense, okay, in your inner self. It could be cooking. It could be taking care of the house. It could be hiking. It could be sports. It could be anything as long as it's helping you connect to your body and your feelings, okay? But it will involve taking a time out, okay? So if you are very busy this month, just do remember to take that time out in order to give yourself that conscious awareness, that space to observe your feelings. Now let's talk about your transformation this month. Saturn rules your 8th house, and he's going to be in that 4th, going direct on the 20th. So you've been feeling your way through your transformation process, okay, and reflecting on this for the past couple months while Saturn has been retrograde. And you'll continue to do this up until the 20th when Saturn goes station direct. Then from the last tail bit of this month and into August, it'll be really about continuing to feel your way through your attachments. And what I mean by that is feel where you might be holding on too tight to things. Where are you emotionally holding on too tight? What are some old patterns, emotional patterns that you need to let go of and release? You've been taking a break with this while Saturn's been retrograde, and that's great. But as Saturn starts to go direct at the tail end of this month, it's, you're going to be called to take a little bit more of, diving into again and just figuring out where are these old patterns that you need to let go of, okay? And doing this will release you. It will help you gain a sense of freedom, and I think you're going to find that the more you do it, okay? And the reason for this is really just to let go of all that garbage that's not serving us, okay? And yes, it takes work, but it's beautiful because it makes way for all the new stuff to come into our lives, okay? And this is all part of the alchemical spiritual process. All right, let's talk about your 12th house this month. Mercury rules your 12th, and he's going to be going direct in that 12th, like I said. So like I said, spiritual month. You've been reflecting on your spirituality while Mercury's been retrograde, and up until the 28th, really surrendering to the void, taking the time to be present, connecting to your heart, connecting to universal love in your presence, the Buddhic Christ consciousness. This month really is key, okay? And this is all setting the stage for you when Mercury will be going into your first house on the 28th and into August, when your spirituality will take a much more proactive direction. All right, Cancer, so let me know if you have any questions. If you'd like a personal reading, I am offering a discount this month for my personal readings at only $45. So please get in touch if you would like one of those. I'll put a link down below, and have a great month. Thanks for watching, Cancer. Bye.